everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's #1 advocate show, Timeshare Solution or Surrender with Irene Parker, where we try to help people who have struggled from deceptive acts of timeshare agents solve their problems. And sometimes it's not possible, but I have a lot of experience with Irene and have learned that for the most part, majority of these problems can be talked through and figured out. It has been a great year working with Irene so far, and we've got more people coming to see us about their problems. So this has been a good show. It's been a good advocate program, and I want to thank you, Irene, for doing this.
Well, thank you, Kim, and I'm so glad today to have our board members with us, and I'd like to go ahead and bring them on right away so they can hear our beginning comments today. And I'm going to start with Sherida, and she and Earl. Every day is Veterans Day at TARDA. And Earl is a Navy veteran, 100% disabled. And Sherida is on our board, and she keeps us honest with our minutes and making sure we keep everything as it should be. Then I'm also going to introduce Denise. So Denise is also on our board, and she has over 20 years experience working for 3 different developers, and she is here to help with legislative efforts, and to one of our goals is to promote the secondary market, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go. So sometimes live TV and technology don't mix. And so we have our board president, Sheila Brush, who's to the left on my phone. She was on the screen and then got bumped out. So if we hear somebody from the peanut gallery over here, that's Sheila.
I just sent her another link. Not quite sure. Is she on her phone or is she on a computer?
Well, I'm on both.
Pick one.
Yeah, just pick one. But
I can't get anything on either one.
Well, let's just, for now, this is fine. You can listen and weigh in. We've got plenty of people on to look at here. And we have one more guest. One more guest that's going to join us about 1:15 because she's at work. And that is Fran Dygulski. And so today we can offer proof that there really is a Fran Dygulski. So Fran is a psychologist and authored our dispute resolution process article in June of 2022. So she started a dispute process just like Sheila did. And Sheila and I go back about to 2016. And after she resolved her dispute with 2 different resorts, I asked her to help me put together the process, and that's what we're going to go through today. So I'm going to start by saying, Sheila, since you're not on screen, I'll go ahead and give your background, and then you fill in the blanks. You retired from, Sheila retired from the New York Attorney General, Governor's Office of Employee Relations. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And you have an accounting background?
Yes.
Okay. And Sherida, you want to give some background on how you, let's start with, we can talk, we're not going to talk too much about individual resorts today, but briefly, because you've been on the show a couple of times, and Earl, don't hesitate to chime in, where I feel you really have, if not proof, it's pretty darn close to proof of what happened at Vacation Village, because the biggest complaint we have in the industry is being told that you can rent to offset the cost of the timeshare, or in your case, you could sell another timeshare so you can afford it. And just give us a little background on why that doesn't work.
Well, we went through a tour at Williamsburg, colonies at Williamsburg in 2019, and our agent convinced us to purchase this 2-bedroom, 2-bath annual timeshare by telling us that she would have a friend who could sell our Westgate timeshare that we already had in order to pay for the colonies. And she gave us the name, the business, and so that convinced us to purchase the other one, thinking that this fellow would sell our Westgate. So we listed with him for $299 was the listing price to list the Westgate timeshare.
That was the listing fee.
Listing fee, and he was going to list it for 39,000, I believe. And then also a bonus week that we would get with colonies, he was also going to list so that we could pay for our maintenance fees. I have the contracts from him that I send out to everybody when I write to them. And of course, we heard nothing back about selling it. So now we're strapped with both timeshares. And I've spent the last 2.5 years writing to 6 CEOs at colonies. And now I started writing to the Berkeley Club, the Berkeley Group, who
Yes.
manages the place. And I write to them every 2 weeks, reminding them of this crime. I think it's a crime. Hopefully become a spur in their saddle until they finally give us back our money.
Well, it's actually a civil dispute because and unfair and deceptive practices because you signed a contract.
Yeah.
And but you made lemons out of lemonade. I mean, did I say you made lemonade out of lemons?
Yeah.
And you're working in Marriott resales and rentals right now. And for a company that we don't want to mention, it's kind of unusual to have a company that doesn't want you to mention their name on a television show, but he doesn't want to be flooded with people. Even if you say Marriott, people are still going to call about Vacation Village and Club Exploria that Sheila is ready to strangle. Now, both of Sheila and Sherida, you did resolve other disputes with other developers, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That I've got my phone on. We just got dispute number 118 since we built our website a few weeks ago. If we had time, I might be able to take that and see what an incoming problem is. But what we're going to do is when Fran should be on in about 5 or 10 minutes, the article, you can find the article on the TARTA blog. So we formed TARTA in 2019, Timeshare and Resort Developer Accountability, Inc. So let's now get started with the dispute resolution process. And then we will, and what I put in the beginning of the article, I just helped Fran revise it a little bit. Kim, is your sister Kelly. Because Kelly was on, she's with Motivation Mortgages. She's licensed to lend in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And one of the biggest complaints we have or concerns is what happens if I stop paying my maintenance fees? What happens if I stop paying my loan payments? So we're not going to get into that today, but anybody interested in that, she's on episode 31, September 23rd, and anyone can access any show by episode and date. So
something I want to point out is if no one should ever tell you you should do that. That should be a conversation you have amongst yourself with a financial expert, understanding the ramifications of what could happen. What is interesting to me is the amount of exit companies and exit attorneys that are out there. And the first thing they will tell you is you're going to cancel paying everything. You're going to just stop paying them. they don't really get into telling you that when you do this, you're going to ruin your credit and it's going to be hard getting it fixed. And so I think, first off, exit attorneys shouldn't be advising people to do that. But that's the only way they can force the hand of getting a settlement. So instead, to me, if I mean, if you're going to do this anyway, just don't hire an attorney because they charge you money to do exactly this, and then you lose your credibility. So I would, oh, look who's joined us.
Oh,
Yay.
my
Oh, yay.
Well, I was trying to do it from all that string of everybody texting back and forth. And then I finally got my email up, and then it said you had to hang up the phone.
Okay, well, I sort of filled in for you there.
Yeah.
And but to follow on that theme, Kim, is one thing that Kelly suggested anyone that is in default to do, because, you know, if you have a house that you live in with a loan and something happens, you can't afford it or you don't like it, you can sell it. But if you have a timeshare with a loan, you're just out of luck. And so that's why a lot of people have no choice but to default. Timeshares are financed from 12 to 19.99%. And the catch 22 is that you know, nobody should finance a luxury item at that interest rate. But the catch 22 is you shouldn't pay cash for a timeshare, because then the resort has your money and it's more difficult to dispute. And the worst case, sales agents are suggesting you charge the whole thing to a credit card company, especially one partnered with the resort. They don't care what you used your money for, or a home equity loan doesn't either. So Kelly said the first step is to dispute the mortgage, that it's a mortgage. And we have support from none other than the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Jacksonville that held up a lower court's decision. This was in a Military Lending Act that said a timeshare loan is not a mortgage loan. It's an installment loan, and it should be charged off or settled for less, which is less damaging. And Kimberly, if you can keep an eye and to see if we have Fran joining us. I can't always see down
I'm
below.
looking for that.
Okay, I'm sure she'll be here. Okay.
The thing that bothers me is that it is considered a mortgage. It does, you know, it has no equitable, to me, no equitable value whatsoever. But it hurts you even if you keep making your payments, because your net GDP is out of whack because you own something that you're paying a ridiculous interest rate on and a ridiculous amount of money with homeowners association fees and taxes. And so your valuation is so low with it that it just hurts you to get a loan to begin with. So I don't know, you know, I don't even know why they're allowed to sell these things. There's no value that I can see. You know, Irene has made value out of it, but for majority of the people, I just don't see it as any kind of valuation. But it does not help you to even get a loan, even if you made the payments on time. It's not that how it hurts your credit score is your the amount of assets that you have that have value, and your debt to your debt ratio. So and that hurts you. That hurts you really bad, and people don't consider that when they buy one of these.
Well, and in addition to the 11th Circuit, Fannie Mae and the National Credit Union Administration say it is not a mortgage loan. So, and the first step we're going to talk about, the most important step, and Sheila and Denise and Sherda, they've been on incoming calls, someone will call and my resort did this, and I'll ask them, what did you buy? I bought 10,000 points. How much did you pay? I think it was around 20,000. They don't know. And Sherida, you and I listened to someone that called. Here she is. Okay, I see her. Let me go ahead and bring, before we have Sherida weigh in here. Oh, I'm sorry, I took her off. Fran, this is our celebrated contributor, Fran Dygulski. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, how's everybody doing?
Good.
Good. And you and Sherida, not Sherida, I get Sheila and Sherida mixed up all the time. You and Sheila have talked before, haven't you?
I think so, a long time ago, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were all talking in 20 to resolve your dispute. And Sherida, even though Sherida and Sheila are battling Vacation Village and Club Exploria, there were other resorts that they were able to follow our process and resolve their dispute. So Fran, can you just, without naming names, just give us, I know you only have about 15 minutes, and I was saying that we really love volunteers that are psychologists and work in the psychiatric field, because as a former CASA supervisor, court-appointed special advocate for children in foster care, some people that call me are in as much despair as someone whose children have been removed from the home. And so talk about the emotions and how you felt when you realized you can talk in general about what the problem was, and then we'll let you get back to your patients.
Okay. Yeah, like after purchasing and then going through like how it worked and finding out over time that things weren't the way they were really set, presented to be working, and then how it was such a difficult time, finding anything for the amount of points that you had and all these loops that you had to jump through and block out dates and everything else. It just started to be like realizing like this is definitely not working the way it was supposed to work, and everything they said isn't real. A lot of things they said aren't true. And then basically you just start feeling like you made a big mistake. You're kind of like hard on yourself, feeling that how could I be so stupid, and that you can't trust people. So little by little, what ends up happening is you just start feeling more depressed and anxious, and you lose confidence in yourself and your decisions and things like that.
And so if you're a psychologist or work in the psychiatric field, you know how to write a report.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and share in general what were one or two of the misrepresentations, because complaints about general availability tend to not work, because there are millions of people that love their timeshare.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I use the example of a family whose son was stationed in Germany, and they were told that there were lots of resorts by his base for a family of 4 to stay a week. But when they attempted to book, there was only a studio for a family of 2 and 200 miles away. They were able to resolve their dispute. So, but what was deceptive? I'm sure whatever, 1 or 2 examples of what was deceptive.
Yeah, like beyond the availability, the ones that were the more egregious things that were told that were found out to be totally untrue was that you could rent the timeshare. You could rent it to so many places that you might want to rent out to people when there's events, and then only to call and find out like, no, we don't do that. And I'm like, well, the salesperson told me that you can rent. Also, there was something else. Can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a while, but that was definitely egregious. And then there was something else. Can't remember offhand, but that was definitely not true. I would have to pull up my report to really remember. There was one other big one.
Well, we can work, we can run with the rental because we're taking your article. We encourage everyone to go to the TARTA website. We now have our articles categorized. So if you go to blog and you go to advocacy page 2, I put a few extra touches on it in advance of this show. But the very first item to address is to write a clear, concise report. There are some people, if I tell them to do that, I will never hear from them again. They just, and some people just can write away. So we're not attorneys, but I always talk about, I'm going to sound like a 5-year-old. Who, what, when, where, why. So do you recall the process you undertook to compose your report?
Yeah, well, I just kind of wrote the report when I filed. The process of what I did was basically first letting the timeshare know, sending them a letter of the things that you found that were, to be not untrue from the salesperson, letting them know, and then writing a letter to the Attorney General, letting them know what happened. And that, the circumstances of what, they told you in sales that turned out to be not true when you went to find out about doing these things with the timeshare customer service. Also writing the Better Business Bureau. We went on Trustpilot at the time. A lot of us were doing Trustpilot as well.
I remember. Yeah. And so what happens then, I could apply for a job as a robot auto denier, because I would just, if I were the robot, I would tell you, oh, Fran, here, let me send you in my response, here are your initials where you agreed that you did not believe anything a sales agent said. And so how do you come back from that?
Yeah, it depends. I guess what it is too is the pressure that they put on you. It gets very difficult to to really, they put such pressure on you so you don't have time to review these things like with a clear mind, because they say it has to be done today.
Okay, well, no, robot here. You had 10 days to review your contract if you bought in Florida, or 5 days if you bought in Nevada, and you should have read your contract. But in the case of Vacation Village and a couple other developers, reading the contract doesn't help you. And the rescission period doesn't help you because you don't have access to the booking site yet. Those contracts say you can rent. And Sherida, fill us in. Did you ever attempt, now that you work in rentals and resale, have you ever been able to rent a Vacation Village week?
There was one miraculous time where I did rent the Vacation Village, but usually what I have to do is exchange it on interval for a Marriott in order to rent it.
Well, and then we had a past guest, Cassandra, and we had identical, she was on a couple months ago, but we had an identical complaint just 2 weeks ago, the same exact thing. I forgot if it was Formula One or whatever it was. If you buy this week, and in her case, she was sitting in Las Vegas at Grandview, and they sold her a Florida week. You can rent that out and for $6,000 during that week, and it'll pay for your whole purchase, which even someone we know that's spent 30 years in resales attempted to do that week and weren't able to do that. So when you submitted your report, Fran, what was the response from the timeshare company?
It wasn't favorable. They said that they never said any of those things. It was just very generic, like a denial of everything. And they weren't willing to negotiate in any way. And even though I told them that, we did send letters to the Attorney General as well. But just following the process like we have in the article, that's the only way that you could get any headway. The Attorney General, it depends on the state. Sometimes they don't. Even want to look at it because of the political situation.
Yes, we've decided that some attorney generals are pro-industry and some are pro-consumer. Club Exploria was just sued by the New York Attorney General, and talk about deception, where they were sued for accused of illegal robocalls, where the caller AI starts out, "Hi, I'm TripAdvisor, and I'm with Helping Hands Association. That's an organization that helps orphans. And all you have to do is stay 3 nights and tell us what a great time you had at Summer Bay at Club Exploria." And I thought, oh my heavens. But now you started the process about 2020. And then
yeah, that was like after the purchase of what we had, I think in 2017. Then again, we kind of like upgraded, and I think it was 2018 or 19. And then that's when we were also told more things, like we upgrade to the one in Hawaii, that we would have a lot more availability because of the demand for that area, things like that.
well, and I asked people to the following questions, and if you go to the blog, those questions are there. Was it possible for you to have discovered what prompted your complaint during the contract rescission period? One of the complaints, people will say, well, they didn't, just yesterday, somebody said, they didn't tell us that we had 10 days to cancel the contract.
Right.
They're not required to tell you that. If you buy a house or a car, you're not going to hear your salesperson say, I want you to know that that in Nevada you have 5 days to cancel this contract. And did you have access to the booking site? Right
No.
now, yeah, we're starting a very organized, hopefully organized outreach to lawmakers. We're starting a new round of politicians now and lawmakers. And what we're saying is that the oral representation clause, and I trained one developer to not say, because I had a couple of articles with headlines, Vice President tells customers that they are not responsible what their sales agents say. And back then you might have heard that yourself. And then they switched over to, we can only go by what's in the contract. So we've had attorney Mike Finn on the show that says that oral representation clause, it should be between two executives doing a deal, not a timeshare sales shark with some very vulnerable people, either very young and inexperienced or elderly and having those problems. So I just we want to reach those politicians and say that if they want it, the oral representation clause should be disclosed at or before the presentation, not buried in 80 pages of electronic fine print. The other question is, we have already discussed this, has this been about general availability? Is that usually doesn't help. And Denise, you've also been a timeshare user for many, many years. So supply and demand is really important about when you're going to use your points. That correct me if I'm wrong, but if I have some kids and I can only travel June, July when they're off school, and I want to go on a specific week, if it's July 3rd, that's not going to work. So you have to be flexible, right?
Yeah, you have to book so far in advance with those high peak times, in the spring break, fall. And people don't realize that, as a salesperson, makes it seem it's so easy, so simple. And by that point, when you realize that you do have to book so far in advance, late, you can't get out of the contract. So, and they do bring people in for training in the initial 30, 90 days at some of the resorts to give them training. But that's, I'm doing air quotes because it's really more about just selling them more points. They show them the weekends, which the points are higher. They show them peaks are higher, and inevitably they don't have enough points. It's always to find more points. So it's always constant sales presentation rather than education and showing people how to use it. So that's the problem that I have with it for sure. It's more about getting people what they need versus what the salesperson.
Well, yes, and then the other question is it just that you can't afford it? Now, if you can't afford it and it's a house, you can sell it. But
Right.
you can't go back to your developer and say, or even if you lost your job or you have surgery, you can't go to your home mortgage lender and say, please cancel my home mortgage loan. I lost my job.
Right.
So the difference is you can sell those things. And we also had a complaint where somebody, and they resolved their complaint. They were a diving instructor. And they were told that, oh, we have lots of resorts by dive centers in these islands I've never heard of before. And he was able to document specific times and he tried to book. So it's a matter of knowing how to talk back, how to answer back. So then in your article, you mentioned also document everything, right? So if somebody calls you or you've reached out and you've made 12 attempts, write down the date and the time and the nature of call. You mentioned that. And then you gather the information, as I mentioned, the who, what, when, where, why. And we always have a disclosure running below the screen that this is not meant to give legal advice, because we're also on a radio platform that may not be seeing that disclosure. So people will say, oh, I'll send you our contract. No, we don't want you to send us your contract. But we want you to understand the process. So, and Sheila, you bought multiple times, didn't you? 3 or 4 times?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just have to run because I have something going on, but thank you so much.
Hey, that was great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Bye, guys.
We know you're a real person.
Thank you.
I might
Bye-bye.
need a psychologist.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. You just have to click leave. All right.
Yeah.
So gathering information is not the easiest thing in the world, because it's like, and we personally bought, I think, 3 times, and then our resort was acquired by another developer. So I talked to an FBI agent. And now I know what it feels like when somebody calls me. I had stuff all over the floor trying to put it together. And the chronology is very important. Do you need to know all of those purchases? Well, okay, so if you bought in 2014, we don't have to go into a lot of detail. I bought a 2-bedroom and then I upgraded to points. And the purchase price, if you remember, but if there's a loan outstanding, and you bought again and they wrapped that prior loan into a new loan, you want to know that. How difficult was it, Sheila, for you to pull all those contracts together?
I know it is very difficult, and especially with my first one, because we bought in 1995, and it changed companies 3 times. So yeah, I had to have all my contracts out and everything. And today it's a lot different because they put everything on a flash drive, where back in those days you had paper.
Well, let me stop you there, because
Yeah.
that's one thing. That was the most recent legislation that ARDA was responsible for allowing alternative media.
Yeah.
That you could be provided, sign electronically, and be provided on an alternative media. That's fine if you're buying a house or if you're buying a car, but we have complaint after complaint, especially from one developer, that here's your flash drive, but the documents are not on the flash drive.
Right.
And then the other is the tablet is a cheap tablet and it doesn't work.
It is.
And try to get a new tablet or get a hard copy when you've walked out that sales door.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just add that in, that if you're signing electronically and they're just sign here, to take the time to, I think, Denise, do you know, can people request a hard copy, or is?
They can, yeah. I mean, no one reads that stuff later. They take it home with intentions to, and life gets in the way and they forget to. And I think it's designed that way intentionally so people don't read it. I mean, and if you did get a hard copy, you almost have to have a legal background to even decipher it in the first place. I mean,
Well, at least you can see the purchase price, the down payment, and right before Sherida came on, right before Fran came on, I mentioned to Sherida, we spent about, I think, almost an hour on the phone with a timeshare buyer that, did you look at the contract? No. So, but to spend $30,000 or $50,000, the opposing side will say you should do more due diligence.
right.
And I was kind of surprised. Sherida, what was your opinion when we were talking to this wonderful gentleman who is very, very high up in government circles, that just didn't know who, what, or the 5 W's that I'm referring to. What was your thoughts after talking to that gentleman?
Oh, it just seemed rather scrambled, and I've experienced that with another fellow who I've not heard back from. That I want to see a screenshot of what he owned on his dashboard for Sheraton, and I haven't heard back from him, so that we can kind of figure out what to do. So you get a vague understanding of what they have. So I don't really know how to help someone if I don't really know what they have. And if they don't know what they have, how are we supposed to help them?
Well, and one of the reasons, my ulterior motive was for this show is I've been the gatekeeper for a lot of these initial contacts.
Mhm.
And so to have all of you, we have 10 board members. We're going to be adding a new board member. So we'll have 1, 2, 3 military families. We have 2 Navy veterans on the board, and our incoming board member is both an Army and a Marine veteran. So, but I don't chase people. Some people will, Denise, I think we talked to someone, right? That we talked to them and she ran with it.
It was amazing.
She went to Google Doc and it was just perfect. And so one of the don'ts we have on our do not do this list is don't give up. That if you compose a report and you send it and you don't hear back, especially if they've already told you, sorry, you're out of luck, don't wait around. You have and the next phase that we're going to talk about, and I really want to make sure that this is under Fran's step 2, educate yourself. Because we've got 20 minutes left. We might have to have a part 1 and part 2 for this process, but I want to talk about the resources that Fran noted in her article. The first one is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So Sheila, did you file with them? And Sherida, did you file with them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we should refile. Shouldn't we refile and give them updates?
What we're doing is, because I am so tired of timeshare nightmares of veterans and active duty service members finding their security clearances in jeopardy. And a lot of veterans keep their security clearance to work in military related careers, we've coordinated 33 veterans and active duty service members. I want all of them to go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now, what's really bizarre, and this is how stacked the deck is, timeshare developers are massive lenders, massive, and you cannot file a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau because the timeshare company does not appear from the drop-down menu because they're not a financial institution. But what you can do is tell your story. So I would like to have, now, when you do that, they don't investigate it because they don't investigate timeshares, but they will forward it to the Federal Trade Commission. So when someone had explained that to me that attempted to file a complaint, I gave up on them until last year, where I attended oral arguments. One was a developer accused of violating the Military Lending Act. Another one was accusing the credit reporting agencies of not investigating the dispute. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau sent attorneys to both of those appellate courts hearings, oral arguments, and they filed an amicus brief, amicus meaning friend of the court, supporting the timeshare member. So you think these big, they don't represent you, but they're policy making. And the same with the Federal Trade Commission. You file with the Federal Trade Commission, all you're going to get back is a list of timeshare tips. But in 2020, ARP magazine published the FTC's top 10 fraud lists. Timeshare sales were number 9 on that list, and timeshare resales, not Sheridas, but fake buyers, people calling you on the phone saying, hey, I got somebody that's ready, wants to buy your timeshare. Those are all scam calls. So if no one filed complaints, people wouldn't think there was any problem. Did you both file complaints with the Federal Trade Commission?
I don't think I did.
Okay, so this is why we want to get him back on board, to just make sure this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to follow up, homework. And I'd say I've talked to over 3,000 timeshare members since 2016. I think you'll all agree that some people want you to do this for them.
Yeah.
People are quick to post, slow to act. And I know that Sheila and I actually were holding signs up a couple of times to protest, even outside the Florida Attorney General's office. And that brings us to the office of the Attorney General.
We tried to go up into their office because they wouldn't answer us.
Yeah, I think they closed the office that day because we were there. So the office of the Attorney General, what I have concluded is there are some pro-consumer attorney generals and pro-industry. So the North Carolina Attorney General sued Club Exploria over those illegal robocalls. We had Megan on our show, and this really, Megan's given me a lot of nightmares, and every time I get discouraged, I think of her husband under fire in a combat zone. And pregnant with their 3rd child at purchase, told, don't worry about your husband, a Marine, being deployed to a combat zone. You can rent it out. And I did not ask Fran I couldn't even remember her complaint, that even way back then, it was this rental scam that is beyond a doubt industry-wide. And so she is living in North Carolina and Utah, and they do kind of a dual residence because of his deployment. So she filed a complaint with the North Carolina Attorney General, and they responded right away with an email address. And of course, the developer could care less. And so she's now in the rebuttal process. And we also wanted to include third-party support with this 11th Circuit ruling that says if a timeshare loan is not a mortgage, then home mortgages are exempt from Military Lending Act. At the end of the day, they go back to the lower court and certify class. But I really have high hopes that any military buyer, those contracts will be voided if they purchased while they were active duty. So what's really confusing is I don't know if you've had any experience with Nevada, Sheila. We had another volunteer out in California, Arizona, that I think would help more with that. But the reason why TARTA is important, why volunteers are important, and I want to thank all of you, because it's a rare person that will pay it forward. You know, you both had your timeshare problems in the rearview mirror, but decided to pay it forward, to be there for others, to share that when you file with the Florida Attorney General, and I'm the former manager of Senior versus Crime, a special project of the Florida Attorney General, Duval County, all they do is take your complaint. They cannot mediate. They cannot force a timeshare developer to cancel a contract. So they will just send your complaint to the developer. The developer will respond back. Here's your initials on the oral representation clause. And you and I, Sheila, we both went head to head with DBPR,
Oh, yeah.
the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, that blames the consumer. Is all I heard, is that they should have read the contract in the 10-day period. What was your experience with DBPR?
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, well, first, the person that reached out to me from there, she believed everything. She says, I cannot believe they didn't cancel this. And remember that, Irene?
Yeah.
For the longest time, she kept saying, I can't believe that company did not cancel that. And then she talked to the attorney at the company, and they explained something to her, and she says, oh, I understand it now. So
Yeah. And what,
we went back and forth with them for about a year.
well, and you had proof. You
Oh,
had
yes.
proof of a maintenance fee relief program that didn't exist. I actually had 5 pencil pitches, they call them,
Yeah.
and they're very sophisticated, can write them upside down.
Yes.
And they told you, we don't know if you took this or if it was given to you willingly, meaning evidence obtained illegally is inadmissible. I
Yeah.
mean, and they're,
Wow.
for the consumer, you know, give me a break.
It
Now,
was the same salesman too.
yeah, exactly. Now, one thing that I want to encourage people to do, and this takes some time and effort, but Ben Dover, it's not a real name, it's 2 N's, she launched a Westgate Timeshare Hostages Facebook group. The banner is that old Eagles song for all of us old enough to remember. You can check out, but you can never leave. And they did a GoFundMe because it costs about $500. I think they wanted to raise $500 or $1,000. I think the Florida Attorney General charged them maybe $300, and the Tennessee Attorney General charged them like $200 to do it. And they received 585 complaints. And of those complaints, nearly half, 251 complaints, mentioned being pitched to rent to be able to cover the cost. We have Andrew. We're now really want to focus on, with the election behind us, mercifully behind us, to reach out to lawmakers. This is the time to do groundwork. So there's a Utah senator. So Megan is in Utah. Andrew is in Utah. Andrew served 10 years with the Idaho National Guard. He wanted to transfer and serve another 10 years to get 20 years in with the Utah National Guard. Westgate had sold him a 4-bedroom for a family of 3 as a rental investment, and he gave very detailed explanation of how he was supposed to rent. But he and Megan are going to reach out to that senator. Now, timeshares are regulated at the state level. So representatives propose bills or an amendment to the Timeshare Act in the House of Representatives. But it doesn't hurt to reach out to Senator, maybe they can. And Tom Gwynn, who served 23 years with the Baltimore Police Department, that 20 years with his company, happy with his company, and the agent gave him the person to call to rent, and it worked. And then he was issued a cease and desist letter. He reached out to now Senator, was in the Representatives, Tom Leake. The response was, oh, it's okay now because they amended the timeshare law, so sales agents can't misrepresent the product. Well, we need to let them know about the oral representation clause. It's perfectly, you're perfectly safe to do that. Now, back to Fran. Okay, Fran's, some of her don'ts. Don't make emotional statements or use inflammatory language. So, they scammed us. We don't want to say, it's better, words matter. And so we want to say, we were deceived, not that they didn't scam us. Don't ask for all correspondence to be in writing. Some people, it takes them a really long time to write their report. Some of them are 4 or 5 pages and hours, and you send it. And, we don't chase people. So, they have to take the ball and run with it once we get them pointed in the right direction. And then I'll get a call. Well, they reached out to me, but I told them I wanted everything to be in writing. And I'm like, oh no, they can just say no. What are you going to do? The other is don't object to your call being recorded. Now, I think you predated, your sales session wasn't recorded, was it, Sheila?
They said it was, but when I asked for the recording, they said, no, we can't give you that.
Oh, 2017 is when the recording started, when one developer, over 1,000 people could file complaints against them with one attorney general. And so they decided to record the closing. And that's another thing on our list of a lawmaker. Number one, the oral representation should be disclosed at or before the sales presentation. Number two, the rescission period should begin when the buyer has access to the booking site. And number three, it is unfair to use a recorded closing against the buyer. The buyer should be offered the opportunity to record the sales session.
I had one guy that even came in. It was the salesperson's upper person came into the closing, and he told them to turn it off.
Oh, wow.
Right.
While he was there. Yeah.
Yeah, if you ask a question, the question and answer should be on the recording.
Mm-hmm.
What good is it to turn off the recording and then you can just kind of dance around the objection and turn it back on? So entrapment is not too strong of a word. Sherda and Earl, were your closings recorded?
Yes.
Okay, and then was that brought up against you at all?
No.
They will say, why didn't you bring it up on the recording if this wasn't important to you? How do you answer?
Well, the problem is we developed a trust with the sales agent who said, don't say this or say that at the closing. And so we just followed her lead because we trusted her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. And it's just like, for instance, the issue between Westgate and Colonies, that they would buy Westgate. And then she had her connection, which Ed McGee was the one that was selling her timeshares. And we would be doing the same thing through him. The whole point of us even investing in Colonies, and I made that very clear, was that it was for an income, to make an income. And so she pursued that in every way. And that's why Ed McGee came in the picture, and stage that whole thing that, yeah, that's all going to happen for you. And you go through, the same guide that I go through, and that will all be good. Well, no, it's a total lie.
Well, and
Well,
one of the good things we appreciate so much, Kim, you're being the genius behind the shows along with your other producers, is, and one attorney, when we went to Delaware, every time I've heard him in court, he said, or writing a complaint, these are real people. You tend to think they're just over there. Oh, here's Fran's article. Great. And, are you really telling me that these people that live in God's country, Minnesota, upstate, they would know, they just on their own found Ed McGee to sell this?
Yeah.
Yes. So again, on the TARTA blog, you just go to advocacy category, and on page 2 is her article. And the other, a couple other don'ts is if when your company reaches out to you and they say, we're going to record this call, we tried to be snarky. Snarky doesn't work. So just say, okay, if you call your credit card company, they're going to ask to record as well. Because some people will say, well, we're going to record too, and then they'll just hang up. And then the other thing is, don't address your complaint to whom it may concern. We want try to get at least a department name. And I think shared as the ultimate example of this, don't give up. And we're going to be doing some more media and legislative outreaches with this. Then we get into the nuts and bolts of the, what to include in your, if you can get the ID numbers of your real estate agents. And if you go to the Arizona Attorney General, you file your complaint with the Arizona Attorney General, Florida Attorney General, Missouri Attorney General. But if you have a complaint in Nevada or California, the Attorney General will refer you to the real estate division, and you have to file a complaint against the real estate agent. Now, it wasn't until Sharon and I got our real estate licenses in Florida in October of 2023 that I realized we should have been filing complaints with the DBPR, which stands for Department of Business and Professional Regulation. I'd almost like to take this call and see who it is, but we don't have enough
We have
time.
1 minute, and
Yeah.
this has been a good checklist of what to do. But as you can see, Irene gets calls all day.
Yeah.
Your support and what you do to help us is wonderful.
Good. I'm
Thank
on
you.
our live
We'll
TV
see
show.
you
Let me
next
call you back
Monday
in a few
on
minutes.
Timeshare Solution.
Okay,
or Surrender.
bye-bye.
Meanwhile, follow those instructions. I don't know if you saw what site that was on, but it's on the TARDIS site. And but follow, those are some good tips on what to do when filing your complaint. And send a note to Irene and get on the show and talk out.
Well,
Talk
and
it out.
that
Put it
phone
out of
call,
your system, because
that
when
was-
you start, it feels good.
the phone call was from someone that he was able to resolve his dispute.
Oh, nice.
There you go.
and
We got to have him back on the show. I can't wait
because
to hear about that.
within the 10-day period, he almost missed it. Sherida, this was referred by our friend, and this was the person that was horribly lied to. I mean, I don't remember the details. I just remember it was horrible. And some people will just go to their resort, to the sales center to rescind within the 10 or 5-day period, but you need to write a written report and send it certified mail. So this was
it has to go to their office. But until then, we'll pick up on this on next Monday.
Yeah, we're not done yet,
take
so we're
care.
going to have a part 2.
Don't bye until you talk to Irene.
Sherida, we
Or
need to
Sherida.
start over.
That's